You and I are going to make something beautiful today. So last week I had all this grandiose plan. I'm going to be making this bracelet. It's going to be a diamond shape, and it's going to have this echo diamond shape and some type of bead on the inside. And I worked and I worked and I worked. I couldn't get it to work. And from that, I just kept pushing through until this happened. And maybe it's because we've been doing so much Art Deco lately. I'm thinking this looks like that era. More of a statement piece. It's definitely very chandelier-like and wider. Let's see how wide it is. About 1.25 inches wide. That's kind of a wide earring. And I just love how it turned out. Man, I was feeling very discouraged. I tell you, yesterday when I was working through it and it wasn't working, and I'm getting a little scared because I'm thinking, I'm not going to have a tutorial for today. I was really thinking that we might not have a tutorial today because I had nothing else planned because I was so sure I was going to figure this out. Well, it didn't work out. But as someone had mentioned in the comments, amazing things happen from failures. So let's work on this failure today. Let's go over a little bit of what we're going to need and what we're going to use to create these lovely earrings today. A 4-inch section of 16 gauge. We are going to need another 3-inch section of 16 gauge. This is going to be creating the center core bit and this echo chevron here at the bottom. We're going to need, probably, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 length of 22 gauge to wrap these beads in. You're going to be making chain today. And a couple sections of 20 gauge here to make some ear wires. Jump rings are from the 20 gauge as well. So here's the tools that I'm going to be using. Of course, we're going to have a ruler on hand. We're going to have our trusty bale pliers, some cutters, and two chain nose pliers. You usually always need those when you're working with jump rings, so have those handy. Optional is a ring clamp. Don't have to have this, but it makes it a little nicer. I'm going to have my nylon hammer and a bench block nearby in case I need to, this core area in here needs to, you know what I mean? It's a little wonky. We need to hammer it flatter. So I'm just going to keep those nearby, and I'll have something to file the ear wire ends or anything that's kind of sticking up or sharp or anything like that. So we've gathered all of our stuff, and I am so excited. Let's get started. Okay, just to show you again, remind you here on the ruler, I've got about 4 inches, and this is going to create this center core diamond, if you want to say. And I'm going to be using the first step, which is 2 millimeters on my bale. And we discussed in a couple videos that if you measure off 1 centimeter of wire, that it works so perfectly with 2 millimeters. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to a 1 millimeter mark, finding that, and then we're going to make a bend backwards, making a 90 degree angle here, picking up bale pliers and turning it so that I can access this 2 millimeter bale. And I'm going to be rolling it backwards. I need to shift hand positions here. I knew that as soon as I did it, I was like, no, this is not how I want to hold it. And slowly, once you got a firm grip, roll that backwards until you get this loop there. And I have found that to get this diamond shape, I kind of watch where this loop is, the end of this loop is pointing, and I kind of just look for that. There is going to be a measure of eyeballing and making this work. I will give you specific measurements to make this diamond shape, but there's going to be a measure of, okay, yeah, I got it. Now it looks right. So just be expecting that. forgot to tell you to have a Sharpie on hand, because I do like to, because this requires a little more precision, I do like to mark things. From the bend of this loop, I'm just going to find any centimeter. Because I want to work this way. For some reason, that's how I was working. I was starting on this side loop and working up and coming around this way, but you can start differently, whatever works for you. If you don't mind, I'm going to go in the way that I have been working it. So I'm going to position it on my ruler like this to start going in this counterclockwise way, but you can make it so that you're going the other way if that works better for you. We are going to measure out 12 millimeters from the neck of this loop, and that is where the very next bend is going to be in this diamond shape. With your pliers on the wire just to the right of that dot, we're going to press near the pliers and put in our very next bend, which is going to create this beginning center core element to these earrings. This angle is not quite 90 degrees, because if we did 90 degrees, we just would have a square. And I don't want a square. I want more of a diamond shape. So I've got a little more than 90 degrees here. From that bend, we're going to measure out another 12 millimeters. Stay down, stay down. And this is where we're going to put our matching loop on the other side. Again, with pliers just to the right of that dot. We're going to bend back. Grab your bail pliers and set them right down in that neck there. And keep the bail around the side, not too much on the corner. Keep it here, and that's going to create more of a neck. If you put it in here, the wire is going to come way over here next to the bail, and you'll lose some of that neck. So if you keep it here, you're really going to make more of a loop with a nice neck on there where we can attach all of our other goodies. So I'm pressing firmly around that bail. I'm going to have to turn it to keep pushing that wire. I have to get this wire all the way around. Pull it all the way around, because we want a loop, a nice loop all the way around. We're going to be bending it back though. Every time I do this, my daughter does this thing, and it's so annoying. She's like, "Mom, look at this." And she just tries to get me to look at this stupid thing shape she does with her hand. It's like doing something, you got something on your shirt, oh, bull, and you hit someone in the nose. She does it to me all the time, and it's so annoying. Okay, so we've got this little typical loop with a scarf shape. I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers. I'm being mindful of where we've learned the bend happens. The pliers are holding what's here inside the jaw of these pliers. And so the bend is going to happen just outside of it. And I'm looking to see where this other bend is. And this is one of these elements of this project where, even though we're using measurements and the 12 millimeters and different things like that, you're going to have to use a measurement of eyeballing as well, just to make sure it looks good. Holding very firmly, we're going to be angling that wire right back out. I think it could go a little bit more. and then you can just pinch it closed. Do I need to make any adjustments here? Are these sitting across from each other? I think they are. And it needs to go back just a little bit more. Just make sure they're pinched closed. Now take your pliers and hold, we want to lock in this little pinched area that we just made, this little loop and this little pinched area. Hold that firmly in your pliers because it's the same principle of the jaws are locking in. Whatever's in the jaws is locked in. So now that's holding nice and firmly. Now we can bend this wire out to make the next angle of this diamond shape. And I'm looking to see, is it kind of parallel with this other wire? This is another element that you are just going to have to eyeball. But this project is very forgiving because of elements like this with the wrappings, and we have this lovely chain going on, and you're not going to be solely focused on this. This is just your core piece where everything just kind of connects to. So you do not have to worry about it being absolutely perfect. And you know, I'm picky. You learned that from the last ring video where we made these rings. I'm a little picky, but this one is a little forgiving. So don't beat yourself up if it, you know, is slightly not diamond shape or like that. We just want to get it as best we can. I think I'm going to pop this on our bench block, and I'm going to grab my nylon hammer and flatten this out. Just a little bit. And from here, we're going to measure out another 12 millimeters from the neck of that loop. We might still have to make some adjustments. This is not a super precise thing that's going on here. I mean, we're using a ruler, we're using some simple measurements, but you know, this isn't machine made. This is handmade. So there is going to have to be some adjustments made. I'm kind of looking, making sure that this dot that we just made, and you can do like a little trick like this, is just on the opposite side of that other bend. It looks like it's going to be pretty good here. And I'm going to place pliers to the right of that dot. And then once again, pressing near the pliers and bringing the wire to that very first loop. And we should have this little diamond shape. Now, is it absolutely perfect? And no, it's not. It's handmade. I went through a lot of trial and error yesterday. I threw things across the room. I was getting so nervous not having a tutorial for today because it was originally supposed to be a bracelet, and man, and then somehow we got to earrings. I don't know how it happened. So do not worry that it's not absolutely perfect, because these earrings are going to be so beautiful that no one is going to pay attention. They're going to be looking at the handmade chain and the beads that you choose. That's where this comes together. I'm going to trim off this excess. Did we need 4 inches? No, but you need something to work with. You need something to be able to bend. So you might be able to get away with like 3.5 if you're tight on wire. I'm just going to put the flush side of my pliers in there, and I'm lining it up with this previous loop and this wire here, and just snipping that. So now we've got this little diamond shape. This does not need to be connected in any other way because our 22 gauge is going to make it all come together, and you're going to see how that happens right now. I've got, I think I cut 8 inches. With this one, I think I did, oh, excuse me. With this one, this pair of earrings, I think I did 6 inches, but I'd like to see how much wrapping I could get in there and will it make a difference. So I think I cut about 8 inches. Let's see. Because I did another eyeball. Okay, so I've got like 8 to 9 inches here. I just want to see what it happens. Because that's a lot of how I do things, is what happens if I do this. A lot of experimenting. And in the beginning, when we went over tools and supplies, I did mention that you could use a ring clamp to do this part, if you have one. If you don't, you're just going to hold very firmly. But since I have one, and I absolutely love it, I'm going to show you how to do this with a ring clamp. We're going to put those wraps on the end. And I start out like closer to the end of the loop, and then I start working back to the diamond shape. And it's going to encapsulate that wire that we first laid down. You're going to see what we have here. The ring clamp just helps you get a better grip. That's all that's for. Wonderful accessory tool. I like that. I think I like having a little more. We shall see. Now leave this here because we're going to tuck this end in. But not until I get some beads on there. So I went and gathered my beads, and what I have here is, at first I thought these were 3 millimeters. They might be 4 millimeters. I measured them, and I can't quite tell. They're somewhere between 3 and 4 millimeters. And I really liked these because it comes down and it kind of sits in those wraps. Push it in there. Kind of sits in there like that. Gone with my 6 millimeter bead, and whatever this is, it's like 3 or 4. It's whatever you want that fits inside of here, and it fits absolutely perfect. And then we're going to put some matching wraps ending on the back side, on this other side. Okay, so, and you see how this is that cut open side. I'm going to first wrap to that closed neck side and then make the wraps. Doing the same thing where I'm starting the wraps on the outer part and moving in towards where the beads are. And hopefully this will do what I want it to do and kind of just encapsulate that. I don't think I'm going to do another wrap because it's sitting in there nice. You see how you just have to eyeball things? I think we're good on that. And what we're going to do is, do I need to trim this anymore? I think I might need to trim it a little bit more. And we're going to take with chain nose pliers make an angle and press that up in there. That might take a little finagling. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. This is going to be the back of the earrings. Trim this down because I don't need all of that. I think maybe that'll be fine. And angle that right up in there and tuck it away. And I'm just kind of gripping all of those wraps and pressing it. And now we have made our center form. Okay, now that we have our center core piece here, we're going to now make this echoing chevron that is going to hang below. And I'm grabbing some chain nose pliers. And I'm finding the center, but I'm going just to the right. It's kind of that same principle that the bend happens just to the outside of the pliers. And I'm getting a bend started, and I want to see if it's matching this angle that we have going. Wow. Okay. I think I'm liking that already. Sitting right up in there. Grab your Sharpie and put a little mark on this wire to mark where we're going to bend it to make these connecting loops. Back with chain nose pliers, and just to the right of the dot, bend it to make it straight. Same thing on the other side. I don't want to press on this side of the wire because then that's not where I want the bend. I want it on the inside here. And see what we got going on here. Make any adjustments that you need to make. I'm going to reset it back on there just to see how is it going to work here. I think that will sit right down in that loop. Now we're going to trim these arms, these side arms to 1 centimeter. Do you mind? I'm just going to put it down here on any centimeter. I find it hard to hold it out here, so I'm going to move it down to somewhere, any old centimeter. I'm going to find that mark, go out 1 centimeter. And flush cut that. Do the same for the other side. If you have any wonkiness, if it's anything that's not level, get it straightened out now. Put it on that bench block, give it a nice flattening out if you need to. Now we're going to go in with our bail pliers, the 2mm bail, and we're going to make the connecting loops. You do not need to make the whole loop connect. We just want to get the loop started, kind of like that in there. Same thing for the other side. Right on the end. And start rolling in that loop, but you don't need to close it. You can have something like that. And we should be able to, we don't have to do any of the pulling out of the loops or anything like that. We should be able to line that up and then come back in with some chain nose pliers and close up those loops. So keep that in mind whenever you're trying to connect something. Just leave it kind of undone with the loops, and then you can close it in, tighten it in later. Ooh, I'm liking the way that it is looking. Yes. All right, now I have shown you several times, well, maybe not several, a couple of times, how to make jump rings. And we're going to do it again, and we're going to grab 20 gauge. I'm going to wipe this down a nice good length because each earring is going to need 19 jump rings. Now, if you have these ready-made already, or you've bought some, hallelujah. It is a process, but I'm going to show you how to do it. Maybe you don't have already made chain in the budget, or you've got the wire, but you don't have time to wait for chain to come in. No. This is your option for these jump rings. I have some made. What is that? Oh, that's trash. Oh my gosh. With the 2mm bail, that is the size of these little jump rings that we're going to make. And as we're turning, I'm going to make the end of that wire go to the left side of the little loops that we're forming. And what that's going to do is that the loops are going to build on the left side, and they're going to come out on the end of the bail. You'll have plenty of room. You could get a good long spool of coils here to make jump rings. As long as you get the end of the wire going out to the left, that's the direction that the coil of loops that you're making will go. If you do it the other way, you are limited to the length of your bail, and that is it. And then you'll have to cut it, and then you'll have to start again. So make sure the end of your wire goes to the left. And I'm just making very simple, repetitive turns of my hand and holding that feeding wire in there steady. I think I've got plenty, honestly. So I'm going to stop there because I have a little selection here anyway, and I'm going to flush cut that end. This is the side I want to start with. See, this one's already kind of hanging out. I don't want to start with that. This one's already in there nice and flush and going the right direction. Now, something I do, okay, I'm going to turn my pliers so that the flush end is in the direction on the side of the next loop that's going to create the opposite. What am I saying? It's going to create the other end of the jump ring, nice and flush. But what I do is I gently grab it. I'm not cutting. I just want to pull open this spool a little bit. That will help you get the end of your pliers in there, the end of your cutters. And I just put it back on there, had to create another flush end once again. And then I go to the next layer, pull it out if I need to, flush cut that end once again, pull out if I need to, and that's the process. The goal is to get little flush ends on both ends of what will be your jump rings. You can use these for all kinds of things, not just chain, which is a nice option though. Chain adds such a nice little element, and sometimes it's nice to be able to make that yourself. But then it's nice to just buy it. I don't do this all the time, but I did not have, only copper chain I had was like antique copper looking stuff, and I didn't want to use that. So I'm like, well, I guess making jump rings is what we're going to be doing. A little bit left to my coil. I can finish making these jump rings another time, but I think I have enough. Remember I said that we need 19. Another thing that, remember how when I was on the coil and I was pulling it open to cut it, the other little thing that helps is to open up the jump ring. I'm going to take 2 jump rings. I'm going to just make sure that's good and open and slide it in. All right, we've got the first of 19 jump rings on there. Whoop. And all it is, honestly, it's a little tedious, but it's just building the chain. So I'll work through this by taking 2 chain nose pliers, opening that up if you need to, and we're just going to build this chain. This is why I was saying having those 2 chain nose pliers is really helpful for that, so you can get a good, nice and closed jump ring there. And this is all it is simply pick it up, however it works to slide it on there. And using 2 chain nose pliers to close them up. Make any adjustments if you need to. And that's all this part is. If you're finding that jump rings are not lining up, go past a little bit, bring them past the meeting place, and then when you bring them back together, they'll sit much better together. And if you have one end sitting up a little bit more, very gently, very carefully, just press it down into place. Now, when it comes to soldering, which I am still working on, you need to be even more precise than that. But since we're not soldering, I'm going to do just the best I can. Just that it's closed and it's pretty much lined up. Another little tip you can do is if you don't want to do it connected to the earring, build your chain away, not connected to your earring, and then you can attach it once you've got the 19 together. That is always an option as well. It's however you like to work. I like to give you those options. Don't feel like you have to do it exactly the way I'm showing you. All right, we've got our little chain built here, and I've got the one end open, and I want it to hang properly. So I'm making sure that as I bring it over, that I've got everything lined up properly. All the little loops are straight. Twisted. The chain is not twisted, is what I'm trying to say. I wanted to make sure it was nice and taut and all going in the same direction. I had just a couple left over here, so we did really well. This is basically the earring. The one and final thing to do is make the ear wire, and this is all going to come together. I do bail pliers. I do the 2mm bail right on the end. I make a little loop, turn my pliers, turn the wire back in the pliers, nice and level, and I'm pressing around the 7mm bail until I come around and meet that first loop. And then I just put a little bend in it. Trim to whatever looks good, Ear wires are just as flexible in their design. Do what looks good to you. Just giving some taps out to strengthen your ear wire. Definitely want it to be strong. Oh boy, now the tricky part is I've got to find the center one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay.
So I believe this is the center one, right there. And I'm just going to slide on that ear wire and close up this loop. And you just made a fantastic pair of earrings. Now you got to make the matching one. I'm so sorry. Make a ton of jump rings or buy yourself some jump rings so that you can make your own chain. Maybe make your own chain. Buy your own chain. That is an option. You do not have to do all that, but this is a great Chevron Art Deco inspired pair of earrings. Really, really nice. Each pair of earrings is going to have its own quality to it that makes it unique. The only thing I would suggest is when you go to make your matching earring is that you are constantly taking your angles and use the first one that you used as your guide to how do I want to make the bends or the angles, or how long, do I need to do this? Constantly just going back and using that as your foundation, your model to work off of. And then you'll have two matching sets of earrings. But this one definitely does not match these two, but that's how I got these to match. I just kept taking my bends and I kept setting it on there to get it to match. And I would do the exact same with this, is just take your piece, put it on there, match the angles. It'll all match in the end. Don't forget to sand your ear wires. Make sure they're nice and comfortable to put in. Well, I hope you enjoyed a failure that turned into a success. Maybe one day I'll get around to making a bracelet that kind of matches this. But be encouraged. If you're trying to come up with your own design and it's not working, let it shift and let it guide you into what it wants to be, Be creative and see what you can come up with out of your mistakes, out of your failures. You might come up with something lovely. Again, until next Tuesday, I hope you have a great week, and I'm looking forward to what we are going to make beautiful in next week's Tutorial Tuesday.